Well, thank you very much. I know it's a long day, but your reward is these two, who have a lot to say about how we're really using technology in business and how we're going to be using technology in business. So without further ado, I'm going to ask you to both introduce yourselves, and if you, Javier, would answer, what was when you first fired up your first LLM, what was your first prompt? Just tell me what you're thinking. And if you, Jaeger, would tell us, how are you using generative AI today in your own personal life? So, fair warning.
Perfect.
The floor is yours.
We'll start with the presentation, introduction.
Your introduction, and then tell us about your prompt.
Perfect. So, hello, my name is Javier Echarte. I work for DHL, the logistics company, leading the implementation of digitalization projects within the finance area. In practice, this means that I act as a translator between what my finance colleagues dream of having and what my IT colleagues can do, right? And I can tell you that they talk very different languages. So yeah, and in terms of your question, Karen, my first prompt, well, you may have noticed that English is not my first language. So very likely was something in the lines of, please review this text for me, or please put this sentence in perfect English.
Very good. Hi, I'm Jaeger Glucina. I'm Chief of Staff at Luminance. So a little bit about me. Before I joined this technology company, I was an insurance litigator back in New Zealand. So firsthand reading, reviewing, filing, printing thousands and thousands of documents every day, I kind of got to the point where I thought there must be a better way. Surely the legal profession has to catch up to the other industries out there which are using technology. So with that, I moved to London, found this budding technology AI startup from Cambridge called Luminance, and I knew that was for me. So I really wanted to be part of this transformative change that I could see coming over the next few years, even if it wasn't there yet. So to answer your question about uses of LLMs and generative AI that I've used personally.
In your life, how is it showing?
Okay, so I assume a lot of you live in the UK. If any of you have bought or sold a house, I recently sold my apartment, bought a house. There are all of these forms you have to fill out, and I'm talking your lawyer passing you lots of forms to fill out. I had to do that. I found I had to actually review my leaseholder contract as part of that process. You know, I am a lawyer, but what about all of the people who aren't? But I couldn't even control F that contract. So I sort of thought to myself, okay, I'll do a bit of Googling, I'll see what I can do. And then I realized, okay, who do I work for? I work for Luminance. We have a chatbot that I can just load this into and ask a question. I can't believe I forgot that. I was on maternity leave, so we'll blame it on that. So I did just that. I uploaded my contract and I asked a question, which was something like, is the property a qualifying lease? Something I did not know the answer to, and I got an answer in seconds. So for me, that was gold, and that is something that probably every person can do, and something similar in their day-to-day lives.
Fantastic. So along those lines, and I'm a recovering lawyer, and one of the reasons I have to recover is all those thousands of pages of documents that I never want to have to handle again. Tell us about the technology. Like, could you just give us an overview of what you're doing and the problem you're solving, and then we'll advance into the use cases from there. How's that?
Sounds good. Yeah, so to start with the background, Luminance is an homegrown, Cambridge-born AI company, which started doing AI actually before it was cool. So we were founded back in 2015, launched a year later, and it was something dreamed up by a mathematician and a computer science expert in a Cambridge dorm room one day, where they had been talking about some of the frustrations that their friends had been through going through M&A transactions, other types of document-heavy legal reviews, and they thought, I think we can do something here, and I think actually this problem's not yet arrived. It's just going to get bigger over the next decade. So they started with the harshest critics when they started building this technology. They went to the law firms. They said, right, let's go there. Let's see if we can get these experts to help us build a technology which is legally verified, which is trusted, and if it passes their test, then we've probably got something exciting. And so they spent the 8 years after that time building up a large language model which was purely trained on legal content. And that is something that is completely rare in this environment of generalist LLMs. And so over that time, they exposed the LLM to over 150 million contracts, and some of the biggest law firms and businesses in the world, including the likes of Slaughter and May, who use us and also invest in us, through to companies now like DHL, because we've gotten it into the hands of businesses, and even the likes of some of the biggest chip makers in the world, like AMD, who looked at our technology and said, this is the best thing that there is on the market. So that's Luminance, but talking a little bit about the use cases and the problems that we're solving, this is AI which can read and understand language, and that is the simplest way to put it. The way you then apply that to different problems and challenges is vast. There are hundreds of use cases for Luminance. So I'm talking everything from your really low volume, low risk contract reviews like NDAs, which are massive roadblocks for companies, no matter how low risk they are, all the way through to the really complex reviews, whether that's contract review, whether that's a regulatory compliance review, whether it's an M&A transaction, an e-discovery, a compliance DSAR regulation review, or even a marketing team reviewing an influencer contract. So the opportunities are endless because of its innate ability to read and understand and compare language and understand it conceptually. So that means it can be used in any language, any jurisdiction, and in any subject matter, and it will learn. Quite a broad explanation, but I think that will lead to more.
Contracts, right? It's specifically contracts.
And documents.
And other documents.
So it doesn't even need to be a contract.
Which is exciting. How are you using it? I mean,
So yeah, let me give the side of a customer, okay? So we got to Luminance because we were looking for a solution able to read and understand our commercial contracts. Okay, so high level, that was the intention, right? In objectives, the three key objectives that we wanted to cover were, first, we wanted a solution able to extract data points automatically from our contracts. I will tell you a bit more in a moment about what was the use of these data points. Second, we wanted to be able to compare the terms and conditions of every new contract against our preferred terms and conditions. And third, we wanted a solution able to run complex searches across our entire contract repository, okay? So this first point that I mentioned a moment ago, extracting data points from our contracts, was the use of that, right? So I'm talking about extracting obligations, deadlines, for example, performance requirements, right? The objective of all of this is to automate the obligation management processes, right? So this is about ensuring or reducing first the risk of oversight, but also about ensuring that the right individual in our company takes the right action at the right moment. That's the value of automating this, right? So for example, when I mention about obligation management or what we call obligations, right? I'm talking about, for example, invoice all the costs that the contract says that we are entitled to invoice, or for example, increase our rates the date the contract says that we can increase our rates, right? Not earlier, not later, that specific date, or for example, apply correctly a pricing mechanism that could be included in our contracts. Well, as you can imagine, this has a very important impact, or can generate an important impact for our P&L, for us as a company, but also for our customers, right? Because we want to do things right. So that's an important use case that we can apply to this.
So I want to dive a little bit deeper on that, right? So you've got a technology you like, we'll come back to that in a minute. You've got a use case that makes sense to do something that up to now you've been doing manually or in some other way. How do you measure the value or the sort of the success, right? How do you know that the tool is what's helping you do this better, and what are the dimensions of success for something like this?
Well, I guess that you can measure it through several dimensions, right? I mean, first, of course, if what I'm saying about how we improve the obligations management through good data, right? As you were already saying, I mean, up to now, we were extracting all those data points from our contracts manually. Well, the problem of doing manually, first is that you have to have the right people doing that. Not everyone can read a contract and can extract all that information correctly from a contract. It's about doing it correctly, extracting the right information, because that determines how you will deal with your obligations. Of course, adoption is another driver, right? I mean, we plan to deploy this solution at the global level for the whole DHL supply chain division. And the third, probably not that important as the other two, is administrative efficiencies, right? Because it is true that maintaining all these obligation management processes was done before manually. Completing our contract repositories with all these data points took time. And now we have the help of AI to reduce the burden.
Which is really interesting, because a lot of the use cases we see are sort of driven by efficiencies, or that's the hypothesized sort of uplift, and you're saying it's actually a better process.
No,
right?
Definitely. I mean, the primary objectives is to improve the process, to get more quality of the data, and with better data, do things right. Yes, we expect to obtain some efficiencies, right? But this is not about saying we will need less people. No, we will have more time for our people to do other things that add more value.
Which is really interesting. Could you share with us sort of other experiences, Jaeger, that you're having with your clients in terms of how they're looking at success and how they're sort of validating their deployment of your tool and solution?
Yeah, I think you're right in that. I think initially the goal was efficiency, and we all know that AI is here to help us with low-level tasks that are repetitive and could be automated. So that is a great place to start. But I think as people started to use it, they started to see, right, well, okay, now we know we have more accurate data. We are doing a better job because we have access to precedent. We can see back what our company agreed to in the negotiation of a similar contract 15 years ago, because this technology has actually captured that and learned from it and surfaced that to us when we needed it most. So better quality, better access to institutionalized information that otherwise wouldn't be available, the ability to then make better decisions, and the ability to capture data across different areas of the business to overall present a bigger picture and a better, clearer picture to executives. So it does go well beyond. I think this is going to be one of your points, I'm guessing. It goes well beyond just the efficiency side.
Yeah, feel free.
No, I mean, I think you touch an excellent point, Jaeger. I think the first thing that one can think when we talk about an AI legal solution is that it will be beneficial for legal teams, right? But our use case, I mean, proves that this can be super beneficial and important for the entire business, right? First, with this thing that I was saying about the obligation management, but there are more benefits. So, for example, our top management now can use the solution to run complex searches across our entire contract repository. Let me give you an example. When the pandemic came, we asked ourselves, hey, how many of our contracts includes a pandemic clause? We didn't know, because pandemic clauses were not one of the data points that we were capturing manually, right? So what did we have to do? I mean, all our lawyers all across the world had to read all our contracts again to look for pandemic clauses. With AI, we could have had the solution in seconds, right? But I mean, there are more cases for let's say, non-legal teams. For example, for our operations, right? Typically, one thing that the legal team do for our operational staff is to prepare contract summaries, right? With the key things that are important for them to know to manage their operations, right? Now with AI, we can, let's say, automate initially or partially automate the preparation of these summaries. But we can go one step further because, for example, a site manager can interrogate the contract ChatGPT style to know how the penalties work for his contract, right? Which is very relevant for running his operation. Or for example, let's imagine that we have a BD guy, a business development guy, that is negotiating a new contract with a customer, right? And the customer wants to include a new clause. He can know real time if that clause is included in any of the contracts that we have with the very same customer in any other country, regardless of language, which for us is massive, right? So, I mean, there are plenty of cases for non-legal teams.
Which is really interesting. So sort of a lot of legal tech never escapes the legal department. So that's a really sort of specific use case. Jaeger, and then I'm going to ask both of you this question. What makes for a good customer? What do they need to have sort of, what kind of data do they need to have? What kind of training do they need to do? Because, you know, what does it take to use the tool well?
I think you need an objective first and foremost. So you need to know what problem you are solving. Have a problem to solve. I think every business does. So let's start there. But then you need to communicate that plan, get buy-in from the senior team as well as the end users, and communicate how it's all going to unfold and what they should expect from that product, how it's going to solve the real-life problems that they have day in and day out. That is a very, very high-level plan, but it tends to work. And I'm often surprised at how few businesses have thought that through. So I think that's a great starting point. But you also want to have a team who are behind this, who are championing it. I hate saying that word because I can never get it out properly. And who are reporting back to the business and to users, the results of the technology. Because we all know, we've all been made to use new things as part of our day-to-day jobs, and if you're not invested in making that change, if you don't know why you're making that change, there's very little likelihood that you're going to use it and use it well. So expectation management and setting clear objectives. Data, the whole point of this AI is that it's going to organize it for you. So you don't really have to go out there and make it perfect. Just dump it in the platform. If it's a real AI product, it will do the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, I can only echo what you said, Jaeger. I mean, I think having a solid use case is a prerequisite, and probably is the most important prerequisite, right? I think I read a recent report saying that 80% of the AI projects fail, right? And they highlight the lack of a solid use case as one of the key drivers, right? So first, you need to have a solid use case. Again, this is not about looking for the new shiny thing, so for AI, for the sake of implementing the AI, right? You need to have the solid use case, and then you have to assess the readiness of your company. So is your company ready for that use case? Do you have enough good data to feed the biz? Let's say, in this regard, data-driven companies have an advantage, obviously, because they have the data architecture, they have the governance process to support the solution in the long run. So I would say that those are the critical prerequisites.
So turning from sort of the capabilities and prerequisites, and I think that both of you focusing on use cases is so interesting because it gets, that is so overlooked. And where I come from in Silicon Valley, there's lots of technology looking for problems instead of the other way around. So it's really important to flip that script. But turning now to sort of risks, right? It's not all sunshine. What are the cautions around these products? And some of that's in terms of like what they're going to get better at, but what are the foundational cautions sitting here today in 2024?
Well, the first risk I would say is not doing something because you're scared of the risk. I think we're past that now. There are technology solutions out there which are tried and tested and proven, and they're trusted. So if you need to find out who that is, talk to your peers, look at the industry, and do your research well. The next biggest risk, I think, in implementing once you've decided to do so is in not educating the users, the end users, on what the objective is and what to expect. Because in my time working with not just lawyers, but other parts of businesses, I've seen everything from the person who 8 years ago didn't want to buy anything that was AI unless it was 100% accurate, and we know that just doesn't exist, all the way through to the other side of the spectrum, which was the partner who wanted it to do his entire M&A due diligence and wanted to fire his whole team. Neither of those were reality. And I think we've, over time, gotten to a middle ground where people are starting to realize what the benefits are. It's about automating the low-level work, but augmenting the human where it comes to more complex reviews. And ultimately, the results will speak for themselves because you will start to see those reverberate across all parts of the business. So yeah, I think the biggest risk is not setting those expectations properly. But there's never going to be a risk in just trying it out and using it and seeing for yourself.
But it's true that from a customer perspective, I mean, there are a few risks that are out there, right? I mean, typical concerns, security, data protection, intellectual rights protection as well, right? So those are things that are critical for big companies, right? For big and small companies, right? And the risks are out there, right? And you need to have domain experts that help you together with trustworthy partners, right? But yeah, I would say that those are the key risks associated in general to any AI solution. But when we are talking about super sensitive information, commercial contracts, well, that's certainly a risk.
Well, and that actually is, I wanted to sort of explore a little bit because when you move from proofs of concept to actual scaling a deployment, right, you're plugging it into a real live, system, right, that has its own vulnerabilities and other things. And sort of how do you get over that hump to know that you're ready to move from the lab to the real world?
You need domain experts. For sure, right? I mean, certainly, implementing an AI solution is not only using it in an isolated way. The first thing that you have to do is to put it or integrate it with your data ecosystems. And you need to have domain experts. And probably we didn't mention it before as a prerequisite, but that's the other prerequisite, right? I mean, you need to be aware that you will need to do that, and definitely you need to have resources available to help you during the journey.
Excellent. And Jaeger, for your perspective, how do you then do, the vendor ecosystem is, how should we say, crowded and hypey and frothy, is the word we use. How do you differentiate? Like what should customers be, asking and demanding that differentiates, great technology from like something sort of shiny?
That is a very, very important question. I think one that a lot of people are asking today. So you're right, there's a lot of AI washing going on at the moment. Everyone's slapping the AI sticker on their marketing materials. It's really, really hard to cut through the noise. So one of the most important things would be to trial the technology before you buy it, right? And any AI company that's worth its whatever will allow you to do that. They will not expect you to just trust from a demo. So don't just get a demo, get your hands on it. If your vendor cannot get your hands on that within 48 hours, they're probably configuring something in the background and maybe it's not real AI. So push them on these things. Ask them how quickly they can get it ready, even if you're not quite ready. So it's about out-of-the-box capabilities. It's about the trusted ability of the software, so talk to your peers, but also see it for yourself. It's the specialty of the AI, so if you are looking to use it in a particularly legal context or something else that's very technical, then make sure it's legally trained or otherwise trained. Make sure you can find out from the experts that information is true, and again, try it for yourself.
Well, and that was a question I was going to say, is how do you get past the salespeople?
Well, I can tell you that I've learned so much over the last 2 years about this. So there are so many new companies saying that they have the holy grail of AI, right? Some of them having super immature products. Then you have a lot of well-established software vendors that some of them try to put AI patches on top of their traditional software. It was super difficult to find the right solution. I think it was President Ronald Reagan who made famous the sentence, trust but verify, right? In AI world, when it comes to AI, forget about that. Don't trust, just verify, right? So it's what you said, right? I mean, you need to really try. You need to have, I mean, a good proof of concept. You need to test the out-of-the-box capabilities of the solution. Otherwise, you will be in trouble.
And you have to test it on your data. Like, that's, yeah.
That's what we did. Ideally, you will do that. But even if it's, well, we did it with anonymized data, as you can imagine, because of all the concerns that we have about security, et cetera. And you need to really play with the solution. Don't trust otherwise. I mean, I remember probably one of the best, if not the best presentations that I received while looking for this legal AI solution. It was terrific, fantastic. I mean, right after the demo, we all were talking, whoa, man, this is the product. We have to implement this. We are going to get an award by the company for this. I mean, it was amazing. Okay, next week, we do a demo. They didn't know. They only had a prototype. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. So definitely, you need to run a POC. You need to test before buying, for sure.
You weren't signing up for co-development? Okay.
The thing I forgot to say was, don't just test once. Put it through its paces. Make sure it can learn from you, because AI and machine learning should learn from you. If there is a risk that you do a very short POC and it's a very, well put together one. Yes, exactly. So test that out too.
Among other things, Jaeger, because I mean, your out-of-the-box capabilities, any out-of-the-box capabilities could be good to start with, right? But then you have to teach the solution. You have to train the solution with your data in order to get the best results.
See where it's really going to go. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to thank you guys for verify. I think that's what I'm taking away. So thank you both very much for the real deal. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.